Hello and welcome to the Diana Felzone Show here on Paltalk.com. Today we are joined by a very prestigious, renowned best-selling author, Deepak Chopra, a dear friend of mine, and also the author of the brand new book, War of the Worldviews, Science vs. Spirituality. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Diana. Always good to be with you.
Thank you. So this book is interesting because you didn't do this alone. You had a co-writer who comes from a completely different world, a world of science. He's a famous physician, and you guys...
Physicist.
Yes. Sorry, physicist. You're the physician. And you guys met over a Caltech debate.
Right.
Can you explain how the two of you got together for this, the yin and the yang?
Yeah, I was at a Caltech debate with the Skeptics Society. When you call their number, they pick up the phone and say, "Skeptics, may I help you?" So anyway, and your natural response is, "I don't believe you." But anyway, we were having this debate, and it was on Nightline, and it was being filmed by ABC, the network, and the moderator recognized my co-author, now co-author, Leonard, as also the co-author of Grand Design by Stephen Hawking. So I pulled him out and he said, "What do you think of Deepak's physics?" And he said, "I don't agree with it. I think I could teach him a little bit of physics." And so that little segment got a lot of play on the internet. You know, the physicist ridicules the physician. And it got a lot of negative play, actually. Mm-hmm. So, as you know, my philosophy is that in every negative there's a huge positive. So I wrote to Leonard and I said, I take you up on your offer to explain physics to me. And the more he explained it, the more I realized in my mind that he was wrong. That I could teach him about consciousness. Mm-hmm. And that was the book. It's the genesis of the book. You know, Leonard's a famous physicist principally because he's associated with Stephen Hawking. Mm-hmm. And so the book covers 4 areas: cosmology, how the universe began; life, which is about how life began, and also the whole science of evolution; and then the mind-brain dilemma and the mind-brain problem; and then finally God. So these are the 4 sections: cosmology, life, mind and brain, and God. And you know, I can't speak for Leonard, he's not here, and I don't want to say things that because he's not here, he can't defend or attack me. But you know, the book has actually created a lot of interest, and since the book I've now met physicists and cosmologists who actually agree more with what I'm saying.
Really?
Yeah, not that, you know, Leonard's physics is still mainstream. Right. Okay, so if you ask 100 mainstream physicists, what do you think about what I'm saying? 99 will probably say I'm a flake. Well, and I'm on the fringe. But there's a bunch of them that are saying, no, consciousness is definitely a part of an expanded science which mainstream science ignores. But that's
So do you feel like this book has given you a platform to kind of debunk all the skeptics and all the people that say you're quote-unquote a flake?
Yeah, I think we should call them pseudo-skeptics because skepticism is a healthy science, you know. I would say healthy discipline. Mm-hmm. Skepticism doesn't say I don't believe. That's cynicism, okay? So there's a difference between cynicism and skepticism. Cynicism is bad because you've got a closed mind. Right. Skepticism says, okay, show it to me and give me a theory, give me an experiment, and give me an observation. And then if I do the same experiments and have the same theories and make the same observations, then it's valid, otherwise it's not. There's a problem with that, but we can get into that.
And one thing I do want to talk about is the idea of what life is from a spiritual point of view. Obviously, a physicist would have a different take, but what is your view on what is life?
I believe that life is consciousness. And this is a big thing to say, but it's also very, for most people, it's ill-defined. So what is consciousness? Okay, consciousness is anything that gives rise to cognition, which is knowing, perception, which is experiencing the world through our five senses, emotions, because we at least are emotional beings, personal relationships, social interactions, the context of an environment, and ultimately the forces of nature and biology. All these things coming together constitute life. Now, regular science says life began on a planet called Earth, which is a speck of dust in an infinite mindless void, and life began about 2.5 to 2 billion years ago with microorganisms called chemolitho-autotrophic hyperthermophiles, which lived on the rim of volcanoes. Evolution took place, and now you and I are here, and we're talking about life.
And we're living.
And we're living.
Right.
But I have a different take on it. I think the whole universe is alive. And you and I and everybody here is actually a stardust luminous being. We are the confluence of the dust of stars, space-time, light, and consciousness, aliveness. And by that definition, the whole universe is alive because it evolves, it replicates, reproduces itself, and we are an activity of the universe. This is an activity of the universe right now. The universe is, by the way, it's very mysterious now, much more than it was, say, 100 years ago.
And why is that?
Because today we know that 70% of the universe is something called dark energy, which is space repelling space, and it's happening exponentially faster than the speed of light. Faster than the speed of light. So the cosmic horizon is now about 47 billion light years away from, 47 billion years away from us. We'll never know what's beyond the cosmic horizon, because by the time light gets from there to here, the solar system will have disappeared. Okay, so
wow.
It'll take that much time. So space is repelling space, and we don't know what this dark energy is. It's 70%. 25% is dark matter, which is not regular matter, which means it doesn't reflect light or absorb light or emit light, so it's invisible. But unlike regular matter, you can't bump into it. If you do computer simulations of it, this dark matter, when it goes through other dark matter, it just goes through it. And yet it has the same gravitational effects as our regular matter, which leaves 5% of the universe, and 4% is hydrogen and helium, which leaves 1% of the universe. A bunch of it is interstellar radiation, light, etc. You and me, if you take out the hydrogen and helium, you and me and the entire universe, which is, about 70 billion galaxies, each galaxy with billions of stars and planetary systems. It's beyond our imagination, but it's 0.01% of what's out there.
So we're 0.01% of what is out there.
The whole universe, not only you and me, but all the stars and galaxies, New York City,
and when we
everything.
Speak about living, if we are matter, if we are energy, then do we ever die? Because if you look at your co-writer, he would say, when you die, you're gone and that's it.
But it depends on how you define you. So are you Diana Falzone? That's a name, right?
Right,
You could have been called Ambrosius.
Or Sparkle Goddess.
Yeah, Sparkle Goddess.
I think that's a new name.
Okay. So that's a name. That's not who you are.
Right.
You're not even your body, because your body is recycling every year. And so the body you have right now is not the one you had a year ago. You're not your mind, because you're changing your mind all the time. You're not your emotions, because the emotions are very fickle, they come and go. So there's a deeper you. And that deeper you is pure consciousness, which is infinite. And then, every label you give it, you keep giving it a label, and ultimately you get Diana Falzone. So when you remove all the labels that you've given yourself, you're the infinite being, and that's who you are. And that infinite being is not in space-time. In fact, it gives rise to space-time. So wisdom traditions in the East and in the West, going back to Plato and Parmenides and Socrates, and well, Socrates was Plato's invention, or maybe he wasn't, but everything we know about Socrates is through Plato. But Hermes Megistus, the sages of the East, the Upanishads, Lao Tzu, Buddha, they all spoke of this. And then in recent times, there were other people who spoke of this, the Western philosophers, and today some physicists are speaking of this idea that mind and matter, what we call mind and matter, are inextricably woven into each other and inseparable from the subatomic to the cosmic scale. And this is what Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy. And Emerson and Thoreau and many, Mark Twain and Walt Whitman were influenced by.
And my final question, since today is short, when we talk about afterlife...
I thought we had eternity.
Well, we do essentially, just not in this scope.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
with the 3 minutes of eternity we have left, when you think about the afterlife in, let's say, a Buddhist tradition, there's reincarnation. Do you feel like this is, from a spiritual point of view, that can we be reincarnated? Is that matter being recycled? What is your definition?
Well, I think what is being recycled is information and energy.
Mm-hmm.
Information is an interesting word. It gives rise to form. Information. So information is the mediator between consciousness and physical reality. And the short answer, because we have only 2 minutes left right now, yes, everything's recycles. Your body recycles, your mind recycles, information recycles, consciousness recycles. And that consciousness which recycles is not in physical space-time. It's in a matrix of possibilities that constantly expresses itself as space-time, energy, information, and matter. And that's who you are. You're part of the matrix.
I like that. Is there a blue
By the way,
pill, a green pill?
matrix also means mother, matter, meter, time, measurement, music. All these words come from the same word. So God is a mother that gives birth to the universe. And then she recycles herself as well.
You always say things so poetically,
Well,
and yet scientifically as well. Thank you for joining us today, Deepak.
this was interesting. We should do more of it.
We should definitely do more of this.
And continue this conversation, because we didn't even get into it.
We barely got even a scratch into it. And obviously you guys can check out paltalk.com later to see an archive clip, and go to deepakchopra.com where you can find information on where to pick up his book, War of the Worldview, Science versus Spirituality, and also find a schedule of where you can see Deepak live giving seminars. Thank you for joining us today on paltalk.com. I'm Diana Felsen.